The moment Rachel Morgan signed the forbidden name, 300 masked people stopped breathing. The auction hall inside Palazzo delle Ombre had been built to make powerful people feel untouchable. Black marble columns rose toward a ceiling painted with fallen angels. Hundreds of candles floated in mirrored glass bowls. Beyond the arched windows, November rain turned the Grand Canal into dark, trembling silver. Every guest wore a mask. Some were carved from ivory-colored porcelain, others were covered in feathers, diamonds, or gold leaf. No names appeared on the seating chart. No phones were allowed inside. Even the servers wore black silk across their faces. Rachel had been hired to interpret silence in a room designed to hide everything. She stood beside the auction platform in a midnight blue gown that followed her full curves without apology. The dress was elegant and modest, with long, translucent sleeves and a structured neckline. Her dark auburn hair was pinned low at the back of her head, though the damp Venetian air had already loosened several strands around her face. For the first hour, almost no one had looked directly at her. She was the interpreter, useful, visible only when needed, and easily ignored when wealthy people returned to speaking among themselves. Rachel was accustomed to that kind of invisibility. She interpreted legal depositions in Boston, medical consultations in New York, and international conferences where executives thanked the hearing speakers but forgot the person who had made the conversation possible. She did not resent being unnoticed. An interpreter's work was not supposed to become the center of the room, but tonight's auction was not selling paintings or jewelry. The first item had been a silver key linked to an offshore account. The second was a sealed envelope containing photographs of a European minister. The third was a black Murano mask displayed beneath glass, while the auctioneer spoke only in numbers. Rachel's contract described the event as a private collection sale, benefiting historical preservation. Nothing in the paperwork explained why every buyer had arrived by unmarked boat, or why armed men guarded the palace exits. She had considered leaving twice. Then the deaf woman appeared. She sat alone near the back of the hall, dressed in an old-fashioned silver gown with a high collar. Her mask covered only the left side of her face. The right side revealed pale skin, sharp cheekbones, and a thin scar running from her temple to her jaw. She had no interpreter, no bidding paddle, no visible escort. Yet she watched Rachel with an intensity that made the crowded hall feel suddenly empty. Rachel glanced toward Adrian Pike, the coordinator from Global Access International, who had arranged her assignment. Adrian stood near the eastern wall in a black tuxedo and a plain gray mask. He gave Rachel a small nod, telling her to approach the woman. Rachel crossed the marble floor. She stopped at a respectful distance and signed, "Good evening. Do you need interpretation?" The woman's eyes moved over Rachel's hands. Then she answered in a regional sign dialect Rachel had not seen since graduate school. The movements were compact and old, with several signs formed close to the chest, instead of in the standard signing space. Professor Miriam Cole had taught Rachel the dialect during a research seminar, explaining only that it came from a vanished community in northern Italy. Rachel had never expected to see it used naturally. The woman signed again. "Your teacher kept her promise." Rachel's breath caught. "You knew Professor Cole?" The woman did not answer. She looked toward the upper balcony. A tall man stood there beneath a carved stone arch. His black mask was simple compared with the others, covering the upper half of his face. He wore a perfectly tailored black tuxedo, but nothing about him resembled the decorative elegance of the other guests. His shoulders were too broad. His stillness was too controlled. Two men stood behind him. No one else occupied the balcony. Rachel had noticed him earlier because the entire room seemed to move around his silence. Guests lowered their voices when he passed. The auctioneer never looked directly at him. Even Vittoria Contarini, the palace owner and host, had greeted him without attempting to touch his hand. The deaf woman raised her hands. Her fingers formed a name sign Rachel did not recognize. A closed hand near the sternum, two fingers opening toward the eyes, followed by a sharp movement shaped like the letter V. Then she fingerspelled the spoken name. E-L-I-A-S-V-E-R-O. Rachel frowned. The woman signed. Tell him the hands he buried are still speaking. Rachel hesitated. Interpreters did not soften language. They did not choose which messages deserved to be heard. Their responsibility was accuracy, even when accuracy made a room uncomfortable. She turned toward the balcony. The auctioneer was introducing the fourth lot. Rachel raised her hands and signed the woman's message in international sign for the deaf bidders watching through the private video feed. Then, because the man on the balcony appeared hearing, she voiced it clearly. Elias Vero, the hands you buried are still speaking. The auctioneer stopped. A champagne glass slipped from someone's fingers and shattered. Every face turned toward Rachel. No one whispered. No one moved. The silence was so complete that she could hear rain striking the palace windows. The man on the balcony stared down at her. Then he lifted one hand and removed his mask. Rachel recognized him immediately. Leandro Valieri. The newspapers called him a New York shipping magnate. Federal prosecutors called him an organized crime figure when they believed microphones were off. He controlled private ports, security companies, construction unions, and enough political influence to survive investigations that had destroyed other men. He was 39, dark-haired, and frighteningly handsome in a severe, unsmiling way. A faint scar cut through his right eyebrow. His face showed no surprise, only fury. "Lock every door," he said. Heavy bolts moved throughout the palace. The main entrance sealed with a metallic crash. Guests stood from their chairs. Vittoria Contarini stepped onto the auction platform. She was in her 60s, silver-haired, and dressed in black velvet with a gold mask shaped like spreading wings. "Mr. Valieri," she said, "this auction is protected by council law." Leandro descended the balcony stairs. "Then your law has failed." His gaze never left Rachel. The armed men along the walls repositioned themselves. Some appeared loyal to Vittoria. Others moved toward Leandro. Rachel looked back at the deaf woman. Her chair was empty. Leandro crossed the ballroom. People moved out of his way before he reached them. When he stopped in front of Rachel, the top of her head barely reached his shoulder. Up close, he seemed even more intimidating. Tall, broad, and perfectly controlled, with a black and gray tattoo visible along the side of his neck above his collar. "Who taught you that name?" he asked. Rachel kept her voice steady. "The woman who was sitting behind me. There was no woman registered in that seat. She was there." "What did she look like?" "Silver dress, partial mask, scar on the right side of her face, deaf, fluent in an older Venetian signing dialect." Something moved behind his eyes. "Recognition. Where did she go?" "I was watching you." His jaw tightened. Rachel lifted her chin. "You ordered the doors locked. I would appreciate knowing whether I am being detained. You spoke a name that has not existed for 25 years. I interpreted a message. You gave it a voice." "That is my job." A few guests looked at her as though courage and foolishness were the same thing. Leandro stepped closer. "Not tonight." Vittoria approached them. "The interpreter has disrupted a protected auction. She should be removed." Leandro looked at Vittoria. "No one removes her." The possessive certainty in his tone sent a cold sensation down Rachel's spine. Vittoria's smile barely changed. "Then perhaps she should help us locate your imaginary woman." "She is not imaginary," Rachel said. Vittoria ignored her. Leandro continued staring at Rachel. "Bring her to the council chamber." Rachel did not move. "I am not going anywhere until someone explains what is happening." Leandro's eyes narrowed. "You are standing in a palace with locked doors, surrounded by people who kill for less than what you just said. That is not an explanation." "No." His voice lowered. "It is the reason you should stay beside me." Two masked guards approached. Leandro looked at them once. They stopped. Then every candle in the ballroom went out. The first explosion came from beneath the eastern staircase. The marble floor jumped under Rachel's feet. Guests screamed as glass rained from the ceiling. Emergency lights flashed red along the walls. Masked men burst through a service door that should have been locked, moving through the smoke with military precision. Leandro seized Rachel around the waist and pulled her behind a marble column. A projectile struck the stone where her head had been. His body covered hers. The polished control he had shown in the ballroom vanished into something faster and more dangerous. He drew a weapon from beneath his jacket, fired toward the staircase, and pushed Rachel lower as another shot shattered a mirror above them. Rachel saw Adrian Pike near the eastern wall. He was not running from the attackers. He was opening a door for them. "Adrian!" she shouted. He looked directly at her. Then he disappeared into the smoke. Leandro followed her gaze. "You know him?" "He hired me." "That was not a hiring decision." "What was it?" "A delivery." The attackers spread across the hall. Vittoria's guards returned fire. Guests crawled beneath tables. One of the black Murano masks fell from its display and cracked against the floor. Leandro caught Rachel's hand. "Move." "Where?" "Down." He dragged her toward a hidden opening behind the auction platform. Rachel resisted. The deaf woman is still inside. If she is who I think she is, she knew this attack was coming. She may need help. She brought you here to force my hand. You do not know that. I know exactly what she is capable of. Another explosion tore through the upper balcony. Leandro pulled Rachel into the opening and sealed the panel behind them. Darkness swallowed them. Stone steps descended beneath the palace. Rachel heard water moving below. Leandro's hand remained around hers. She tried to pull free. His grip tightened. "Let go. When we reach a secure door, I can walk without being owned." He stopped so abruptly that she nearly collided with him. In the dim emergency light, his face was inches from hers. "I do not own you. Then stop holding me like property." For a moment, neither moved. Then he released her. The absence of his hand felt strangely immediate. "Stay close," he said. "Ask." His expression hardened. "Rachel." She had not told him her name. He saw the question on her face. "Your credentials were attached to the auction file. That file was supposed to be confidential. Nothing inside this palace is confidential." He turned and continued down the stairs. Rachel followed because the panel above them shook under another impact, and because, for the moment, the most dangerous man in the building was also the only one who knew where they were going. At the bottom of the stairs, black water covered the passage floor. The tunnel beneath Palazzo delle Ombre had once connected the palace to private docks and convent cellars across Venice. Now the Adriatic tide pushed through cracked stone joints, reflecting the emergency lamps in trembling red lines. The water reached Rachel's calves. It was bitterly cold. Leandro removed his tuxedo jacket and handed it to her. "I am not cold. You are shaking. I am standing in floodwater beneath a palace full of assassins. Wear it." That was not a request. No. Rachel stared at him. He exhaled once, visibly forcing control into a different shape. "Will you wear it?" She took the jacket. It was still warm from his body. "Thank you." Leandro looked almost irritated by the success of politeness. They moved deeper into the tunnel. Behind them, metal struck stone. The hidden panel had been breached. Leandro extinguished the emergency lamp and guided Rachel into an alcove. Darkness became absolute. Rachel could not see his face. She could barely see her own hands. Footsteps entered the tunnel. At least 3 people. Leandro placed one hand near her shoulder without touching. Rachel listened. The attackers spoke quietly in Italian. She understood only fragments. Interpreter. "Alive. Contarini wants her hands." Rachel's stomach tightened. One attacker moved closer. Rachel lifted her hand and signed instinctively in the darkness. 2 left, 1 behind. Leandro shifted before she could touch him. A second later, he pulled her behind him as the attackers passed the alcove. Rachel went still. He had responded to her sign. Not a gesture, not a guess. A complete sentence formed in darkness. The footsteps faded. Leandro began moving again. Rachel caught his sleeve. He turned. She signed. "You understood me," he replied aloud. "I saw movement. There is no light. Enough." "You understood every word." "This is not the place." Rachel signed again. Faster. "Who taught you?" Leandro looked at her hands. His face revealed nothing. Then he turned away. That was the answer. Rachel followed him through the flooded passage, with a new fear growing beside the others. He understood sign language, fluently enough to conceal it. And he had been watching every private thing her hands had said. Underscore. The tunnel opened into a circular cistern beneath an abandoned chapel. Moonlight entered through a grate high above. pale enough to reveal the shape of the room. Stone columns rose from black water. A carved Madonna stood in an alcove with the tide covering her feet. Leandro closed an iron gate behind them. Rachel removed his jacket and placed it across a dry section of stone. "You are going to explain." He checked the gate. "Later." "No." His gaze shifted toward her. Rachel's fear remained, but anger gave it structure. "You understand sign language. You allowed me to believe you did not. I never told you I did not. You watched me interpret conversations that were not meant for you. Everything in that room was meant for someone. That is not how interpretation works. It is how survival works." Rachel folded her arms. "Those are not the same thing." "No." The immediate agreement unsettled her. Leandro stepped out of the water. His white shirt had torn near one shoulder during the attack. A dark tattoo extended from the side of his neck toward his collarbone, disappearing beneath the fabric. "What did you sign to the woman before you spoke my name?" he asked. "That is confidential. She used you to announce an identity that could start a war. She was my client for less than a minute. She was not your client. She was a deaf person who asked me to interpret. She is Mara Bellini." Rachel searched her memory. The name meant nothing. Leandro saw that. "Mara ran a school on the island of San Vero," he said. "Officially, it taught deaf children trade skills. Unofficially, the Council of 12 used those children as couriers." Rachel's anger faded into disbelief. Couriers for what? Messages, account numbers, names, instructions no wiretap could record. Children? Children no one in power bothered to notice. The words were spoken without emotion, which made them more painful. Rachel thought of the old dialect Professor Cole had taught her. "Casa del Silencio," she said. Leandro's face changed. "You know that name. It appeared in one of my graduate seminars. Professor Cole said the community vanished after a fire. It did not vanish." His eyes met hers. It was erased. The cistern seemed colder. "How old were you?" Leandro looked toward the statue. 11. Rachel understood before he continued. "Elias Vero. That was the name Mara gave me. She taught you to sign." "Yes." "Are you deaf?" "No." "Then why were you there?" "I had no family anyone wanted to claim. Hearing children were useful because we could move between both worlds." He spoke clinically, but Rachel saw the tension in his hands. "What happened during the fire?" "The council decided the school had become a liability. Mara had copied records. Several children knew the names of men who believed themselves invisible. So they burned it." "Yes." "And you survived." 7 of us reached the eastern dock. The council found us before sunrise." Rachel waited. Leandro's mouth hardened. "They separated us. I was given a new name, new records, and a choice between obedience and a grave. Leandro Valieri, the family that took me, controlled New York shipping routes. They needed an heir who could be trained." Rachel looked at the man before her. The tailored suit, the disciplined voice, the terrifying authority. "You became what they wanted. I became powerful enough to return. For revenge? For the names." "What names?" "The children who disappeared. The officials who ordered it, the buyers who used them." Rachel thought of the black masks upstairs. "The auction." Leandro nodded. "The masks are called the glass index. Each one contains a microscopic crystal layer etched with witness identities, offshore access codes, judicial debts, and assassination contracts. Tonight, the Council of 12 planned to divide the index among the highest bidders. And Mara? She created the original sign cipher. Without her, the crystal layers are almost impossible to interpret." Rachel understood why the attackers had said Vittoria wanted her hands. Professor Cole learned Mara's dialect. "Yes, and Adrian hired me because I learned it from her." "Yes." The betrayal settled heavily. Adrian had recruited Rachel personally 6 months earlier, praising her precision, her discretion, and her research background. He had called the Venice contract a career opportunity. He had delivered her to the auction because her hands carried Mara's language. "Did you know," Rachel asked, "that Pike had selected you?" "Yes." Her eyes snapped toward him. "How long?" 3 days. And you allowed me to enter the palace. I did not know whether you were involved. You could have warned me. If you were working for Vittoria, a warning would have ended the operation. I was acceptable collateral. No. His answer came too quickly. Rachel laughed once, bitterly. You watched me walk into that room knowing I might be bait. I had men assigned to you. I never saw them. You were not supposed to. She stared at him. He had placed protection around her without permission, then let her enter danger to preserve his plan. Not the same as indifference, not enough to be trust. You do not get credit for protecting me from a danger you allowed me to enter. Leandro went still. No, he said. It was the second time he had accepted an accusation without defending himself. Rachel wished he would argue. Anger was easier to hold when the other person resisted it. A metallic sound echoed through the cistern. The attackers had reached the gate. Leandro took Rachel's hand. This time he paused. May I? The question startled her. Another strike hit the iron bars. Rachel nodded. His fingers closed around hers. Stay behind me. They crossed the cistern toward a narrow archway. Halfway there, Rachel saw movement beneath the opposite columns. A silver dress. Mara. The deaf woman emerged from the water, one hand pressed against her side. Rachel pulled away from Leandro and moved toward her. Leandro caught Rachel around the waist. No. She is injured. She may be leading them to us. Mara saw him. Her expression broke open. She signed his forbidden name. Not the finger-spelled version, the old name sign. Leandro stopped breathing. Mara signed, You grew into their mask. His face became stone. Rachel interpreted aloud, though both of them understood. Leandro responded verbally. You brought her here, Mara signed. I brought the only person whose hands they could not predict. You used her. I gave her a chance to speak before they took her voice. Rachel looked between them. What does that mean? Mara turned to her. The council does not need me anymore. They need you. Professor Cole changed the cipher before she died. Only you learned the final form. Rachel shook her head. I learned a research dialect, not a criminal code. Mara signed a sequence. Rachel recognized every sign separately, but together they created a layered grammatical pattern. Location, identity, transfer, erasure, the auction numbers, the glass index. Her training had not merely preserved the dialect. It had preserved the key. Adrian had known. Leandro stepped toward Mara. Where are the masks? Mara looked at him. Still above. Vittoria cannot open the index until Rachel interprets the transfer sequence. I will take Rachel out through the convent tunnel. Rachel turned. No. Leandro did not look at her. Mara can lead my men to the masks. Mara is injured. She chose this. Rachel moved in front of him. Stop deciding which women are allowed to sacrifice themselves. His eyes hardened. This is not a courtroom. No. In a courtroom, at least people pretend consent matters. The gate behind them bent inward. Leandro looked toward the sound, then back at Rachel. I can keep one of you alive with certainty, then improve your plan. Something almost like disbelief crossed his face. Mara smiled faintly. She signed to Leandro. She is not afraid of your mask. He answered in fluent sign before he could stop himself. She should be. Rachel stared at his hands. His signing was beautiful, precise, fast, and emotionally controlled in the way only native language could be. His face carried grammar he never allowed into his spoken voice. For 1 second, she saw the boy he had been beneath the man he had built. Then he realized what he had revealed. Rachel signed. I am afraid of what you hide, not what you are. His gaze remained on her hands. The gate broke. Masked men entered the cistern. Leandro pulled Rachel and Mara through the archway. The chase beneath Venice began again. They moved through passages older than the palace above them. Some were brick channels barely tall enough for Leandro to stand. Others opened into submerged rooms, where rotting furniture floated against frescoed walls. The tide continued rising, lifting cold water from Rachel's knees to her thighs. Mara weakened with every step. Rachel supported her from one side. Leandro stayed on the other, his body positioned between them and every corridor they passed. When voices approached, they communicated in sign. Leandro no longer pretended. Right tunnel flooded, Rachel signed. Left tunnel returns to palace, he answered. We need a dry route. Mara touched the wall and signed, Old Choir Stair. They found the stair behind a collapsed altar. It led into a hidden chamber beneath the chapel. Small handprints covered the walls. Some had been pressed into plaster with paint. Others were carved into the stone beside names. Rachel lifted her lamp. Dozens of children had recorded their sign names there. Mara moved slowly across the room, touching the walls as if greeting ghosts. Leandro remained at the entrance. Rachel found the sign carved near the back. A closed hand at the chest. 2 fingers opening toward the eyes. The letter V. Elias Vero. Beneath it, in a child's uneven handwriting, were the words, I will remember everyone. Rachel looked at Leandro. He had not entered the room. Come here. No. That is your name. I know where it is. Mara preserved it. She preserved evidence. Rachel understood the difference he was forcing between memory and affection. You think she saved your name only because it was useful? Leandro's face remained unreadable. Mara signed from across the chamber. He believes love always carries a price. The council taught him well. Leandro's eyes flashed. Enough. Mara did not stop. He returned every year. He stood across the canal and watched this building. He never entered. Rachel looked at him. You came back to confirm whether the council used the site. You came back because part of you was still here. That part is dead. Rachel approached him. The chamber was quiet except for water dripping from the stair. She stopped close enough to see the small lines at the corners of his eyes. No, she said. It is the part of you that understands every word my hands say. His gaze dropped briefly to her mouth, then to her hands. Rachel lifted one hand toward the scar through his eyebrow. Leandro did not move. Her fingers stopped before touching him. The same restraint he had shown her in the tunnel now held between them. Did you hear everything I signed in the ballroom? She asked. Yes. What did I sign? To yourself? She nodded. His voice lowered. You said the man on the balcony looked like he had never been allowed to want anything gently. Heat rose beneath Rachel's skin. She had signed the thought absent-mindedly while waiting for the auction to resume, believing no one nearby understood. You should have told me. Yes. Why didn't you? Because I wanted to know what you saw when you believed I could not hear you. That is a violation. Yes. Again, no defense. Leandro lifted his hand toward her face. His fingers paused near the loose strand of hair beside her cheek. I have survived by understanding what people reveal when they think I am not listening. I am not one of your enemies. I did not know that, and now, his eyes held hers. Now I do not know how to treat you like anything else without becoming careless. Rachel's breath caught. That is not romantic. No, it sounds like a threat. It is a confession. The space between them narrowed. Leandro's fingers brushed the loose strand away from her face. The touch was almost nothing. It changed everything. Mara struck the wall twice. A warning. Footsteps sounded above them. The moment disappeared. Leandro turned toward the stair. Pike, he said. Rachel heard Adrian's voice. Rachel, I know you are down there. She went cold. Adrian descended with 4 masked guards. He removed his gray mask. His familiar face looked wrong in the hidden room. I tried to make this easy, he said. You sold me. I placed you where your skills had value. You lied to me for 6 months. I protected your career. You delivered me to people who planned to kill me. Adrian sighed. Not kill you. Employ you. Leandro moved in front of Rachel. Adrian looked at him. The council will exchange safe passage for the interpreter. No. You have no men left in this section of the palace. I said no. Adrian's gaze shifted to Rachel. Ask him why he truly came tonight. Rachel did not look away from Adrian. I already know about the index. Not that. Leandro's stillness became dangerous. Adrian smiled. He negotiated for a council seat before the auction. In exchange, he agreed to deliver Mara Bellini if she appeared. Rachel looked at Leandro. Mara closed her eyes. Is that true? Rachel asked. Leandro did not answer immediately. The delay was enough. You were going to give Mara to Vittoria. I was going to bring her into the chamber. For interrogation, to expose the council in one room. You made an agreement with the people who burned her school. I made them believe I wanted what they offered. Mara did not know that. No. Rachel's disappointment struck deeper than anger. You keep building plans with other people's bodies. Leandro's face changed. Adrian took one step closer. Rachel, come with me. You interpret the transfer sequence, the auction concludes, and you leave Venice under diplomatic protection. Whose protection? The Council's. That is not protection. It is survival. Leandro's hand closed at his side. Adrian noticed. You have known her for 2 hours, he said. Do not mistake possession for loyalty. Leandro's voice became very quiet. Say her name again. Rachel felt the violence in the room tighten. She stepped beside him rather than remaining behind him. Adrian's smile faded. Mara signed. The choir door. Rachel looked toward the wall of handprints. One carved panel contained 12 child-sized palms arranged in a circle. She understood. The hidden door required a signed sequence, not pressure. Rachel raised her hands and performed the old grammatical pattern Mara had shown her. Location, identity, transfer, refusal. The wall opened behind them. Leandro seized Rachel and Mara as the guards moved. They disappeared through the choir door just before the chamber filled with smoke. The passage led upward into the palace's western wing. They emerged inside a private dressing room behind the auction hall. Music had resumed beyond the walls. The auction was continuing. Vittoria had restored order while her men hunted them underground. Through a narrow viewing panel, Rachel saw buyers seated beneath the chandeliers, as though the explosions had been an interruption in service. The cracked Murano mask had been replaced. The auctioneer now stood before 12 glass masks, arranged in a semicircle. The glass index. Each mask was black, but thin silver lines ran across the surface like scars. Under magnification, those lines contained thousands of micro-etched marks. Mara touched Rachel's arm. Vittoria will force the transfer sequence. How? The masks respond to camera recognition. Your signing will be recorded and converted into access codes. Rachel looked toward the ceiling. Small cameras were hidden inside the chandeliers. Leandro examined the room. There are 2 exits, both guarded. What is beneath the hall? Rachel asked. The old tide vault, Mara signed. The palace was built above sea gates used to protect its foundations. Leandro understood before Rachel did. If the gates open during high tide, the auction floor floods. Mara nodded. Rachel looked at the priceless masks. Would water destroy the crystal layers? Salt water and impact, Leandro said. Mara signed. The gates are controlled from the council dais. 12 keys. Each council member wore a gold ring, not decorative. Mechanical keys. Leandro studied the hall. If I take the index intact, I can destroy every council family. Rachel looked at him. And control every witness, account, and death contract yourself. His gaze met hers. That is why I came. The honesty chilled her. He had not returned only to avenge the children. He had returned to inherit the machinery that had destroyed them. Would you use it? She asked. Against the council. And after the council? Silence. Rachel felt the answer he could not give. Power did not remain selective. Systems built to control people did not become moral because a wounded man held the key. I can call a ride share, Grace said. Roman's expression did not change. You can. I arranged the moment. You arranged the man standing inside it. Rachel moved closer to him. If you take those masks, you will spend the rest of your life convincing yourself you are only using them against bad people. They contain the names of men who ordered children burned alive. They also contain innocent witnesses. I can protect them. By owning them? His jaw tightened. Rachel held his gaze. You told me you do not own me. Prove that you understand why. The music outside stopped. Vittoria's voice filled the auction hall. Lot 12 requires the presence of our interpreter. Guards entered the adjoining corridors. Mara reached for Rachel. Leandro stepped between them and the door. I will take you through the roof passage. Rachel shook her head. The cameras are already connected. If I sign the transfer sequence incorrectly, I may be able to corrupt the index. You may also place your identity inside every mask. Then open the tide gates before the transfer completes. No. You said the gates destroy the masks. They will also flood the lower hall in less than 90 seconds. Then we move quickly. Leandro's control began to fracture. I did not drag you through half of Venice to watch you volunteer for an execution. You did not drag me. I followed because people needed help. I am asking you not to do this, and I am asking you to trust me. The words struck something raw inside him. Rachel stepped close. You understand my language, she said. Now understand what I am telling you. Protection without trust is another locked room. Leandro stared at her, his hand lifted toward her cheek. This time he touched her fully, palm warm against her skin. I have never trusted anything I could lose. Then start with someone who can choose to stay. A guard struck the outer door. Leandro closed his eyes for 1 second. When he opened them, the decision had been made. Tell me the sequence. _ Rachel entered the auction hall, wearing Leandro's black jacket over her blue gown. The masked crowd turned toward her. Vittoria stood at the council dais beneath 12 gold levers. Adrian Pike waited beside the glass index. 2 guards held Mara near the eastern wall. Leandro was nowhere visible. That was part of the plan. Rachel walked alone to the platform. Vittoria smiled. You have caused an expensive delay. Rachel looked at the 12 masks. How many people die when these are sold? People die every day without being valuable enough to enter history. You believe value is the same as ownership. I believe ownership is the only value history remembers. Adrian positioned Rachel beneath the chandelier cameras. Perform the sequence exactly as Mara taught you. Rachel raised her hands. The room watched. She began with the first sign, location. The masks lit from within. Thin silver lines appeared across their surfaces. She continued. Identity. Names emerged inside the glass as points of white light. Judges, witnesses, investigators, children given new identities, political prisoners, hundreds of lives reduced to transferable information. The buyers leaned forward. Vittoria's expression became hungry. Rachel moved into the third part of the sequence. Transfer. The auction system activated. Encrypted screens appeared behind the masks. Bidding numbers climbed instantly into the hundreds of millions. Then Rachel changed the grammar. Instead of transfer, she signed disclosure. The cameras hesitated. Adrian stared at the screen. What did you do? Rachel continued. These names are not property. Her signs were captured by every encrypted bidder feed. This auction sells living people. These council members ordered the San Vero massacre. Their identities follow. Vittoria struck the control panel. The cameras remained active. Leandro had taken over the internal network. Rachel signed the names of all 12 council members. Masks turned toward one another. Buyers began disconnecting. The doors locked. Not by Vittoria, by Leandro. He appeared on the upper balcony without a mask. The room froze for the second time that night. Vittoria looked up. You have broken council law. Leandro descended slowly. I was born outside your law. He raised his hands, in full view of every buyer, every camera, and every council member. The most feared mafia boss in New York began to sign. His language was fluent and unmistakable. My name is Elias Vero. I survived Casa del Silencio. I witnessed the children taken from the eastern dock. Vittoria Contarini ordered the fire. The hall erupted. Some guests ran toward the doors. Others removed their masks, realizing anonymity had already been compromised. Vittoria's composure shattered. That name is dead. Leandro continued signing as he walked toward Rachel. You killed the records, not the witness. Adrian grabbed Rachel's wrist. Leandro stopped. The room seemed to contract around him. Release her. Adrian pulled Rachel closer to the masks. She is the only person who can complete the transfer. She is not for sale. Everything in this palace is for sale. Leandro's gaze moved to Rachel's hand trapped in Adrian's grip. Something violent entered his face. Rachel signed with her free hand. Do not lose the plan. He saw it. He obeyed. That frightened Vittoria more than anger would have. Leandro stepped toward the council dais instead of attacking Adrian. He seized the first gold lever. A councilman moved to stop him. Leandro struck him aside and turned the key. The palace foundations groaned. Vittoria screamed, Do you know what you are destroying? Yes. A second gate opened. Water surged beneath the floor. The auction hall tilted as ancient channels awakened below it. Rachel twisted Adrian's thumb backward, broke his grip, and stepped away. He reached for her again. Mara drove her shoulder into him from the side. The guards holding her had released her when water burst through the lower doors. Rachel caught Mara before she fell. Leandro opened the third and fourth gates. Council members rushed the dais. He fought them with controlled brutality, using the narrow platform to prevent them surrounding him. His shirt tore at the collar, revealing black and gray tattoos across his upper chest and one shoulder. Rachel guided Mara toward the western arch. Vittoria blocked them. She held a small pistol, but her attention was on Rachel's hands. Complete the transfer. No, I can erase your identity before you leave this room. Rachel looked at the rising water. You already taught me what erased names can do. Vittoria raised the weapon. Leandro saw her from the dais. He abandoned the final lever. Rachel! The shot struck the glass display beside Rachel. One mask shattered. Black fragments exploded into the floodwater. Rachel pulled Mara down behind the platform. Leandro crossed the hall through waist-deep water. Vittoria turned the weapon toward him. Rachel seized a fallen gold auction paddle and struck Vittoria's wrist. The pistol disappeared beneath the water. Leandro reached them. His hands moved over Rachel's shoulders and face, checking for injury. Are you hurt? No. He looked at Vittoria. For a moment, Elias Viro disappeared, and Leandro Valieri returned. The man capable of ending threats permanently. Rachel caught his hand. Open the final gates. Vittoria laughed. You cannot. The last 3 keys require council blood authorization. Leandro looked toward the auction platform. Adrian Pike was crawling toward the central control. Mara signed urgently. The masks can still transfer if the system survives. Rachel examined the illuminated silver lines. The water had reached the lowest masks, but the upper 6 remained intact. Can the chandelier cameras overload the crystal layers? She asked. Mara shook her head. Leandro looked toward the ceiling. The counterweights. Massive Venetian chandeliers hung above the masks on iron chains. Rachel understood. If they fall, the impact will destroy the index, and everyone beneath it. Leandro looked at the remaining guests. Clear the center. He climbed onto the flooded platform. Rachel followed. No, he turned. You do not get to use that word every time the plan becomes dangerous. This part requires one person. Then choose someone else. The water surged higher. Adrian reached the control panel. The masks began glowing brighter. Transfer percentage appeared on the screen. 72%. Mara signed from the archway. The release wheel is above the balcony. Leandro looked up. A maintenance walkway crossed the ceiling behind the chandeliers. I will cut the counterweights, he said. Rachel saw the problem. The walkway could be reached only by a narrow ladder from the council dais. Water now covered the lower steps, and armed guards remained between them. I will finish corrupting the sequence, she said. No, if I stop. The masks complete the last command Adrian entered. Leandro's expression broke, not into anger, fear. Rachel touched his face with wet fingers. You asked who taught me your name. His eyes held hers. Mara taught me the sign. You taught me what it costs to live behind it. Water struck their waists. Do not make me regret trusting you, he said. Then come back. Leandro leaned toward her. Their foreheads touched. For one suspended second, the flooded hall, the masks, and the council disappeared. He almost kissed her. Then the transfer warning sounded. 81%. Leandro turned and climbed the dais. Rachel stepped beneath the cameras and resumed signing. Not transfer. Liberation. She transformed Professor Cole's old dialect into a command the auction system had never been designed to process. No owner, no buyer, no silence. The masks flickered. Adrian shouted at the technicians. Leandro fought his way to the ladder. Rachel signed faster. Names flashed across the screens, then disappeared. The system began copying the council evidence to every connected buyer terminal. Vittoria realized what was happening. You are distributing the index. Only the crimes, Rachel said. Not the witnesses. How can you separate them? Because interpretation is knowing what belongs to the message and what does not. Vittoria moved toward her through the water. Mara intercepted her. The two older women faced each other beneath the broken chandeliers. Mara signed. "You taught children to disappear. Tonight, they are the only reason anyone will remember you." Above them, Leandro reached the maintenance walkway. He tore the emergency cover from the counterweight controls. The transfer screen reached 90%. Rachel signed the final corruption phrase. "Elias Vero lives. The council owns nothing." The system stalled. Leandro pulled the release. The first chandelier fell. It struck the mask display with a thunderous crash. Glass, candles, and black crystal exploded into the floodwater. The second chandelier followed. Then the third. The remaining masks shattered. The transfer screens went dark. Hundreds of millions of dollars in criminal leverage disappeared beneath the rising Adriatic tide. Leandro had destroyed the empire he had returned to claim. The ceiling above the council dais cracked. "Move!" Rachel shouted. He jumped from the lower balcony into the water as the platform collapsed behind him. The impact drove him beneath the surface. Rachel waited for him to rise. He did not. "Leandro!" She plunged into the floodwater. The hall had become black chaos. Floating masks, broken wood, silk, and candle smoke. Rachel opened her eyes beneath the water and saw his white shirt caught beneath an iron chain. She reached him. The chain had wrapped around his ankle. Leandro tried to push her away, signing underwater with one hand. "Go." Rachel shook her head. She pulled at the chain. It would not move. His breath escaped in silver bubbles. Rachel remembered the old tide mechanism carved into the choir chamber. Pull, turn, release. She followed the chain to its counterweight hook, twisted the locking bar, and kicked it free. The weight dropped. Leandro's ankle released. Rachel dragged him toward the surface. They emerged beside a broken marble column. "Hendro." Leandro coughed, one arm closing around her instinctively. The palace groaned. Mara stood at the western exit, signaling them through. They moved into the corridor as the center of the auction hall collapsed into the tide vault. Behind them, the Council of 12 lost its palace, its masks, and the silence that had protected it for generations. By sunrise, Palazzo delle Ombre was surrounded by police boats, Coast Guard vessels, journalists, and investigators from 4 countries. The encrypted auction broadcast had escaped onto private networks before Vittoria could stop it. Several buyers had recorded Leandro's signed confession and Rachel's disclosure of the council's crimes. Vittoria Contarini was arrested while attempting to leave through a servant dock. Adrian Pike was found clinging to a floating section of the auction platform and taken into custody. 7 council members escaped Venice before the authorities arrived. They no longer had masks. Mara survived surgery. Rachel remained at a private clinic near the lagoon for observation after inhaling floodwater. She woke in a quiet room with white curtains moving in the morning breeze. Leandro sat beside the window. He wore a clean black shirt, opened slightly at the collar. A bandage covered one forearm. His wet hair had dried without its usual severe order. He looked less like a king, more dangerous for being human. "You stayed," Rachel said. "Yes." "How long have I been asleep?" 11 hours. "You counted." "Yes." She pushed herself upright. Leandro stood immediately. Rachel looked toward the chair. "Sit." He sat. The obedience was unsettling enough to almost make her smile. "Where is Mara?" "Recovering." "The index?" "Destroyed." "The witness names?" "Your corrupted sequence separated them before the system distributed the council records. The identities were erased from the export." Relief moved through Rachel. "And your organization?" "Several alliances ended when I revealed my birth name, because Leandro Valieri officially did not exist before the family created him." "Yes." "What happens now?" "Some men will attempt to remove me." He said it like a weather report. Rachel studied him. "You knew signing your name publicly could cost you New York." "Yes." "You did it anyway." "Yes." "Why?" Leandro looked at her hands resting on the blanket. "Because you were right." "About what?" "I returned to Venice believing I could take the council's machinery and use it more carefully. That is not what I meant." "I know." His gaze lifted to hers. "You said understanding without trust was another locked room. I have lived inside locked rooms so long, that I mistook control for freedom. Rachel's throat tightened. Leandro leaned forward, forearms resting on his knees. When Vittoria took your wrist, I wanted to kill every person in the hall. That does not sound like growth. No. A trace of dry honesty entered his voice. But I did not. Because I asked you not to. Because you signed it. Rachel noticed the distinction. He trusted her hands more easily than spoken promises. Do you still hear everything I sign? She asked. Yes. Even when it is not for you. His expression tightened. I am learning to look away. That may be the strangest apology I have ever received. It is not the apology. He stood, then lowered himself in front of her chair. Not kneeling in surrender, but placing himself at eye level, because she was sitting. His hands rose. He signed carefully. I am sorry I let you enter the auction without warning. I am sorry I listened when you believed your thoughts were private. I am sorry I decided your safety mattered more than your consent. Rachel watched his face. In sign language, apology could not hide behind tone. The body became part of the truth. He continued. I do not know how to protect someone without controlling the space around her. I want to learn. I am asking whether you will allow me to try, Rachel answered in sign. Trying does not guarantee forgiveness. I know. No hidden guards. He hesitated. Rachel raised one eyebrow. Leandro signed. No hidden guards. No reading my confidential work. Agreed. No deciding that your fear is more important than my choice. His hand stopped. That condition cost him. Finally, he signed. I will fail at that one before I learn it. Rachel appreciated the honesty more than a perfect promise. Then tell me when you are afraid, instead of turning fear into an order. Leandro looked at her for a long moment. Then he signed one word. Afraid. Rachel's chest tightened. Now? He nodded. Of what? His hands moved. That when you leave this room, you will decide the only safe future is one without me. Rachel looked at the man feared by governments and criminal families, sitting before her with his unmasked name exposed to the world. You are not safe, she said. No. You are controlling, yes. You are capable of frightening things. Yes. And you lied to me. Yes. Rachel leaned closer. But you destroyed the thing you had spent 25 years trying to possess. For you. She shook her head. No. That is the part you still need to understand. Leandro's eyes narrowed slightly. You destroyed it, because it should never have belonged to anyone. He absorbed the correction, then nodded. For no one, he said. Rachel lifted her hand toward his face. This time she did not stop. Her fingers touched the scar through his eyebrow. Leandro closed his eyes. The gesture carried no translation and required none. When he opened them, Rachel kissed him. He remained still for half a second, as though even desire now required permission. Then his hand came to the side of her neck. The kiss deepened slowly. There was hunger in him, but no claim. His control did not disappear. It transformed into care. He held her as if strength could become gentleness, without becoming less powerful. Rachel drew back first. Leandro followed an inch before stopping himself. That, she said, was not forgiveness. No, it was not a contract. No, it was information. His mouth almost curved. I understood it. I assumed you would. _ 4 months later, Venice opened the Casa delle Mani, the House of Hands, in a restored public building overlooking the northern lagoon. It was not a memorial alone. Mara had refused to build another place where deaf children were remembered only for what had been done to them. The new institution provided interpreter training, legal advocacy, scholarships, archival research, and emergency services led by deaf professionals. Rachel accepted a 1-year appointment directing its international interpretation program. She kept her apartment in Boston. She also rented a small place in Cannaregio, with blue shutters, and a kitchen too narrow for Leandro's shoulders. He complained about the kitchen once. Rachel informed him he was free to eat elsewhere. He never mentioned it again. Leandro's empire survived, but not unchanged. He lost 2 shipping alliances and half his political protection after exposing the Council of 12. Several men challenged him. None succeeded. He remained feared. He remained dangerous. But he no longer pretended not to understand the language that had shaped him. At the opening ceremony, journalists filled the courtyard. Mara stood at the front, beside a wall, carved with the names recovered from Casa del Silencio. Professor Miriam Cole's name appeared among the teachers who had preserved the dialect. Rachel interpreted the speeches. Leandro watched from the edge of the crowd, wearing a dark suit and no mask. When Mara invited him forward, the courtyard became silent. For most of his adult life, Leandro had allowed other people to speak for him in public, while hiding the language that made him vulnerable. Now he stood before cameras from across Europe and raised his hands. "My public name is Leandro Valieri." He paused. "My first name was Elias Vero. Both names belong to me. Neither belongs to the council that tried to erase them." Mara's eyes filled. Rachel interpreted his signs into spoken English and Italian. Leandro continued, "This building is not mine. It belongs to the people who use it. Its records cannot be purchased, hidden, or controlled by my organization." Rachel looked at him. He had transferred the building to an independent deaf-led trust with no Valieri authority attached. Not a gift that created debt, a relinquishment. After the ceremony, bells rang across Venice. Rachel escaped the crowd and climbed to the rooftop terrace. The city stretched around her in pale gold, domes, chimneys, narrow canals, and water reflecting the afternoon sky. Leandro joined her several minutes later. He stopped near the doorway. Rachel turned. "You may come closer. I was waiting to be invited. You are becoming dramatic about consent. I am told repetition improves fluency." She smiled. He crossed the terrace. The wind moved through his dark hair. Without the palace, the masks, and the army of men around him, he still carried power, but it no longer filled every inch of the space between them. He handed Rachel a small object. It was a fragment of black Murano glass from the destroyed index. Its silver etching melted beyond recognition. "I thought you said all the masks were destroyed." "They were. Then why keep this?" "To remember what power looks like when no one should have it." Rachel turned the glass in her hand. Then she placed it on the terrace wall. "Leave it here." Leandro looked at the fragment. "Rain would eventually wash it into the canal." He nodded. Rachel faced him. "What happens when my appointment ends?" "You return to Boston if that is what you choose." "And you?" "I continue making New York inconvenient for my enemies." "That sounds healthy." "It is the closest available description." She laughed softly. Leandro watched her with the same intensity he had shown in the auction hall, but the meaning had changed. Then he signed, "Stay." Rachel's smile faded. He immediately added, "Not because I command it, not because I can protect you better here. Stay only if the life you want includes me." Rachel answered in sign. "And if I leave?" His expression tightened, but his hands remained steady. "I will visit with permission." "No private army?" "A small security team on another continent." Rachel gave him a look. He corrected himself. "No visible private army." She shook her head. Leandro stepped closer. "I am still learning." Rachel placed both hands against his chest. Beneath the tailored jacket, his heartbeat was faster than his face admitted. "You once asked who taught me your forbidden name?" "Yes. Mara taught me the shape." Rachel signed the old name against the space between them. "Elias Vero." Leandro watched her hands. "But you decided what the name means now," she said. His gaze lifted to hers. "And what does it mean?" "Someone who survived without becoming only what survived him." The bells began again. Leandro touched her waist, then waited. Rachel closed the distance. Their kiss beneath the Venetian sky was not hidden behind a mask, not traded beneath a chandelier, and not witnessed by people who believed intimacy was another form of ownership. Below them, boats crossed the lagoon. Inside the House of Hands, children filled classrooms with movement, expression, argument, and laughter felt through the floorboards. The council had once used silence to make people disappear. Rachel and Leandro had turned that silence into testimony. For 25 years, the Mafia boss had believed his first name could destroy him if anyone brought it back into the light. In the end, it was not the forbidden name that changed his life. It was the woman who spoke it accurately, challenged everything attached to it, and refused to let either of them become property. Leandro had locked every palace door the night they met. Now, when Rachel opened one, he understood what love required. He asked, before following her through,